Welcome to the History Front. Today, we're digging into one of the most powerful and controversial military machines of the 20th century, the Wehrmacht, the armed forces of Nazi Germany. For years, they were seen by some as professional, apolitical soldiers just doing their duty. But the truth is far more complex and far more disturbing. This is the story of the Wehrmacht, its rise, its myths, and its brutal legacy. The word Wehrmacht simply means defense force in German, but during the years 1935 to 1945, it came to symbolize the military might of Adolf Hitler's Third Reich. The Wehrmacht was made up of three branches: the Heer, the Army, the Kriegsmarine, the Navy, and the Luftwaffe, the Air Force. At its peak, it boasted over 18 million men and was one of the most technically advanced military forces in the world. But where did it come from? After World War I, the Treaty of Versailles restricted Germany's military to just 100,000 men. That force was called the Reichswehr, small, professional, and tightly controlled. But when Hitler came to power in 1933, he began secretly expanding the military. In 1935, he openly defied the treaty and announced the creation of the Wehrmacht, with rapid rearmament and new doctrines, like Blitzkrieg, lightning war. The Wehrmacht quickly transformed into a formidable force. In 1939, German troops invaded Poland. Just a year later, they overran Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium, and France in a matter of weeks. The world watched, stunned by the Wehrmacht's speed and efficiency. To many, the Wehrmacht appeared unstoppable. German generals like Guderian, Rommel, and Manstein became household names. Their tactics were studied, admired, even by their enemies. But here's where the myth begins. For decades after the war, the Wehrmacht was often portrayed, especially in the West, as a purely professional force, separate from the Nazi regime and its crimes. The SS, they said, committed the atrocities. The Wehrmacht just fought the war. But this narrative is false. Modern research and overwhelming evidence proves that the Wehrmacht was deeply complicit in war crimes, mass executions, and the Holocaust itself. In the invasion of the Soviet Union, Operation Barbarossa, Wehrmacht units worked side by side with the SS to carry out the starvation of prisoners, the shooting of civilians, and the rounding up of Jews for extermination. One infamous example: the Commissar Order, issued before the invasion of the USSR in 1941. It instructed German soldiers to execute Soviet political commissars on the spot. This was a direct violation of the laws of war and was carried out by regular Wehrmacht troops, not just SS units. On the Eastern Front, entire villages were burned, civilians were hanged as reprisals, millions of Soviet Poles were left to die in open-air camps, and Wehrmacht officers signed off on it all. Even in Western Europe, the Wehrmacht's hands weren't clean. In France, Greece, and Yugoslavia, they carried out brutal anti-partisan operations, destroying towns and executing hostages. Resistance was crushed not just by the SS, but by the regular army. So how did the myth of the clean Wehrmacht survive for so long? After the war, during the Cold War, West Germany became a key ally of the United States and NATO. Western powers wanted to rebuild Germany's military, and many Wehrmacht officers were integrated into the new Bundeswehr. It was convenient to believe they had simply been professionals, caught in Hitler's madness. But as more archives opened in the 1990s and survivors began to speak out, the truth could no longer be ignored. The Wehrmacht was not innocent. It was a central part of Hitler's war machine, not just in battle, but in genocide. Yet, it's also important to understand that not every soldier was a fanatic. Many were young conscripts, some as young as 16, thrown into a war they didn't fully understand. Some committed crimes, others witnessed horrors. A few resisted, many simply tried to survive. By 1945, the Wehrmacht was in ruins. It had fought on to many fronts for too long, under a regime that had no regard for human life. In the final months of the war, it was retreating everywhere. Cities like Berlin, Königsberg, and Breslau became battlegrounds. Teenagers and old men were handed rifles. Surrender was inevitable. In May 1945, the Wehrmacht officially surrendered. Its leaders were captured. Some, like Field Marshal Keitel and General Jodl, were executed at Nuremberg. Others disappeared. Many rebuilt their lives in post-war Europe. Some were never held accountable. The legacy of the Wehrmacht is still debated today. In Germany, in classrooms, in documentaries, and on battlefields across Europe. Should we study its tactics, its campaigns? Yes. Military history demands it, but we must never separate that history from the crimes it enabled, and too often committed. The Wehrmacht was not just a tool of war, it was a weapon of a genocidal regime. And to understand World War II, we have to confront that truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. Thanks for watching The History Front. If this episode gave you a new perspective, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. What topics should we dive into next?